Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Culturama. And we have a great group of people today. We're going to put this all on our Culturama community page. That's culturamacommunity.blogspot.com. And as many as we can record, we'll record. And after we have two more things today. After this, we have Paul Tayar talking about fiction, Kareem Tayar, he is professionally. And then Stephanie Hammer and Romaine Washington are going to be our keynote reading tonight. And they're both fantastic writers, fantastic readers. So, woo. But right now we have Lynda Hoggan. Lynda Hoggan, I came to know when she was at Mount SAC as one of our science professors, and she specialized in sex ed. And then she turned to writing and has written some of the most intriguing things I've read. That piece you got into the LA Times was, wow, I'd never even considered what sex therapists go through. It's extraordinary. And she's here talking today about how to write about sex, which I find very difficult because of the rote nature of sex, right? But she's gonna show us how to do that. So thank you, Lynda. You're welcome.
Thank you. Great introduction. Nice to see all of you. And I do see some more familiar names and faces. So I'm really glad that you're here. So I have a PowerPoint, and I'm going to try to share my screen and see what happens. Oh, but first I just want to say, I just want everybody to be aware that this is an adult topic and there is adult language. Some images that might be a little dicey, but not too bad on the images, mostly words. But I want to make sure that everybody knows that, this is a little bit X-rated at times, in case you feel that's not for you. So let me share my screen here. Oops, let's hope I don't have anything embarrassing on my screen, huh? Let's see. Oops, right now it's just the
progress
full screen view. So let's see, there's the PowerPoint. Okay, so can people see that?
No.
No?
I think you've minimized your screen rather than shared your screen.
Not sure what to do here.
Click on share screen at the bottom.
Okay.
And then you're going to choose one of those screens that pops up.
Okay, I guess that would be that. Now?
Now I've nothing.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing oh, there we go.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, better?
Yes.
Yeah.
All righty. Now let me make this bigger and more visible, hopefully. There. Good?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
All right, so now let's see if I can advance my PowerPoint. Okay, so I wanted to just tell you a little bit more about my background because, you might wonder, well, how does somebody get to write about this topic, teach a workshop about it? And so my human sexuality background is that I have a master's degree in public health from UCLA, and I spent 15 years as a community sexual health educator, places like the LA Free Clinic, AIDS Project, Los Angeles, Teen Canteen, Homeless Youth, and some others as well. And then I had the great fortune to be hired at Mount SAC, and the courses I teach, I've taught for 20 years, and that's when you get that fancy title, Professor Emeritus, when you retire. I teach Bio 15, human sexuality, and also Bio 5, contemporary health issues. As far as my creative writing background, I started off with a BS in English and education, and I had some minor publications in the 1970s, especially. But I pretty much left creative writing, and I just regret that so much that I pretty much stopped doing it for about 30 years. And I returned in the 2000s, and I was lucky to find a really good mentor to kind of help orient me. And I was really pleased to see that I started getting some publications right away. And so one of them was this LA Times story. So far, what I'm writing now is memoir. And so everything pretty much is a memoir story, or the book that I mentioned that's going to be coming out next year. This was actually the publication that John mentioned. It's in a UCLA journal called West Wind, and it is about sex therapy. More recently, I had an article in Cultural Daily, the day I almost stormed the Capitol, which I wrote after the events at the Capitol this year. And the reason I'm highlighting these is that I'm really pretty proud of them. I mean, after being away from writing for so long and then coming back and getting published was just thrilling beyond belief. And I think the reason I don't have more is that then I turned my hand to the book memoir. And this is my memoir that's coming out in July of 22, called Our Song. And it's a story of my first love in college, which was an interracial love affair that took place in rural Pennsylvania in 1972. And so it's very era specific as well, talking about just what was going on, being a college student in that era and being involved with anti-war protests and sex, drugs, and rock and roll and all of that. So I've really dated myself here today, I know, but I don't care, because when you get old, you have a history and your history is interesting. So I enjoy sharing it. Anyway, when it comes to writing about sex, I'm just going to go through these parts kind of quickly because, a little dry reading words off of a PowerPoint, blah, blah, blah. And that's one reason why I put some corny, goofy pictures in there too, just to keep you from getting too bored. But some different reasons why people write about sex. Well, one, like many kinds of writing, is to earn income. Much writing about sex is for the purpose of stimulating arousal. Sometimes it's used to educate, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples how number 2 and number 3 are were used together. And I think why most of us are in these workshops is because we want to create art. So I'm going to be talking more about that than probably anything else. And then question marks are just, there might be other purposes that I just didn't think of when I was putting this together. So how does, let me see, I can't see my own PowerPoint because of this thing at the top. Yeah. So how does sex serve an artistic purpose? Well, it can advance the theme of what it is that you're writing. It can definitely add to the development of a character or characters in your pieces, and or it can create an emotion or a mood, and who knows what else. Oops, can't get this to advance. There. So just some examples of themes. Men are cheaters, women are gold diggers, sex is for creation, sex is for pleasure, sex is everything. Examples of character types: a prudish person versus a lusty one, a generous character versus a stingy one, fearful versus confident, truthful versus a liar. And I just picked these pictures because it's fun to pick pictures. I like to do it. But a big part of how you do these things is by creating the emotion strongly tied to the language that you use. And I'm going to be reading some samples of that to you in a minute. So, some people are only comfortable with medical terminology, which can portray a sort of coldness or matter of fact, like penis, vagina. And then there's the euphemisms. Those range far and wide. They can be kind of prudish and childish, like down there, PP, or they can be kind of sweet. My vajayjay, you're a big anaconda, we make love. Slang is a different level. It can show raw lust. It can be open-minded, like I love your cock, fuck me. Or it can be used to show anger and disdain, like you cunt. Personally, I love the metaphors, and I find myself drawn to the scenes that use them. I looked up the meaning just to be clear: a figure of speech in which a word or phrase is applied to something to which it's not literally applicable. And don't ask me why I picked those pictures. I just found them interesting. I thought the one on the left is interesting because it's very clear what they're doing, and yet there isn't a penis or a vagina in sight. And I just like those little foxes or wolves or whatever they are and the moods that they're showing. So one of my fun parts in this workshop is reading some samples for you that illustrate some of these things. And I got a little more time from John this year, which means maybe I can read a few more. And then a little bit later, we're going to just try a little fun writing exercise and then share it if you feel comfortable. So this is a rather long poem, but I love it. It's by a very well-known poet. I guess more from the 70s and 80s, but into the 90s and beyond. Sonia Sanchez. It's called Sex. Good morning, sex. How do you do? Tell me how life's been treating you. You say what? Sex is and sex ain't. Sex was and sex wasn't. Sex should be and sex has been. On Times Square billboards, on television, in the movies, in the lyrics dripping off pouting lips. You say sex is in the drinks we drink, the laughs we laugh, the walk we walk, the smells we smell as we open our eyes and legs and let the funk spread. You say sex is dark basements, lights turned out, bodies turned on. Sex is a breakfast table full of leftover wine and smiles. Sex is kinky and clean shaven. Sex is straight and gay. Sex is do it anyway. Comes in 2s and 3s, comes on time, late. Sex is love, unlove, comes with danger and beauty, comes in clean and shadowy places. Sex is life, death, a gig. Sometimes you need it in the morning, afternoon, evening. Sometimes it satisfies, sometimes it don't. Sometimes you feel it in your armpits. Sometimes you feel it in the mind, but when it comes, this sex, when it appears, buck naked or clothed, when it comes, Thelonious Monk like jazzy, when it comes, hip hopping like the night, ain't like no other night. You know what time it is, what day it is, what month it is, what year it is. When it comes right, you understand that sex is and sometimes it ain't. But when it is. That's Sonia Sanchez, African-American poet. Any reactions to that piece? Anybody want to share? You can put them in the chat, or I can't see everybody right now, so I don't know that I would see hands raised, but maybe John would.
If you use your reaction buttons at the bottom, the hand raise will advance your screen, or you can just start talking.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying love Sonia Sanchez, love the poem. Somebody says one of her comp students wrote about a steaming chisel of manhood, and she loved that. Stephanie says she loves the repetition of when it comes.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
A lot of people.
Go ahead.
A lot of people are just saying they love the poem and the reading of it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I started off with that because, you know, sex can be a difficult topic for somebody, some people, especially if they don't have opportunities to talk about it a lot. So in a way, this poem is a little neutral. You know, it's not too explicit. And I just love the whole theme of it. And I'm going to tell you a little secret, actually. I was in a workshop with Alice Walker many, many, many moons ago when I still thought I was a poet. And she compared my poetry to Sonia Sanchez. And I was so honored, but now I look back on it and I think, isn't it better to just be yourself than be someone else or like someone else? But anyway, it was thrilling at the time. Okay, I mentioned that, you know, people can make money writing about sex, and
we just have one hand up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I just had a quick comment on that. The poem, I really liked how it was didn't need to be explicit and still it was very sensual and sexual at the same time. Reminds me a little of the E.E. Cummings poem of She Being Brand New, which is a beautiful sexual poem about a car is the metaphor in that one. You know, it's pretty cool. And I really like that. Yeah. Because a lot of sex is written it's just crude. It's not like enticing at all, although the words put in properly can be. But I really enjoy that.
On the audience though, because one thing I've learned about sex and writing about sex is not everybody likes the same thing. So we are going to get a little more explicit in a bit. Anyway, when you think about, writing about sex for money, you might picture like internet porn or something like that. And the piece that I'm going to read from is by a very well-known diarist named Anais Nin, who wrote 2 books of erotica in the 1940s. And they were written a page at a time for $1 a page to a private collector brokered by a bookstore owner. And so she was writing for this one guy stories of all different kinds of persuasions. But I just want to read a little piece and then say a bit more about it. It's from Delta of Venus, a story called The Basque and Bijou. Lila took Bijou horseback riding. Lila looked very beautiful on horseback, slim, masculine, and haughty. Bijou looked more luxuriant, but less poised. It was spring. They rode slowly, talking all the while. Then they galloped, and after they galloped for a time, they slowed down. When they reached the deepest part of the forest, the women stopped and dismounted. They smoked. Lila had kept her riding whip in her hand. Bijou said, "My buttocks are burning." Lila said, "Let me see." Lila pulled her over her knees and uncovered the buttocks completely. She touched Bijou. "Does it hurt here?" Her hand went deeper between the legs. "It still burns," said Bijou. Lila lifted her riding whip and let it fall between the legs and on the buttocks. "I want you hot down there, Bijou, as hot as you can stand it." Bijou said, "But it's so hot, Lila, kiss it." Then they fell on each other with hands and tongues until both reached the full effulgence of their pleasure. And so, interesting little postscript is that, these were written in the 1940s, but they weren't published until 1977. And that was the year of her death. And she said, the reason she decided to publish them, rereading it these many years later, I see that my own voice was not completely suppressed. In numerous passages, I was intuitively using a woman's language, seeing sexual experience from a woman's point of view. It shows the beginning efforts of a woman in a world that had been the domain of men. And I'm so glad she published them because they're really fascinating, and my copies are very well worn, I must admit. Reactions? Okay, I'm going to move on to something completely different.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. I just wondered whether she wrote those as a reaction to what the guy wanted to hear, the guy who was paying her to write, whether she really meant it. So I wonder how much of it was her pleasing her audience or her really, yeah.
I don't know that we really know, but I will say this. There's a wide variety of sexual couplings and acts that are described in these books. So how much she wanted to please him, I mean, I guess as he kept paying that $1, she kept writing. She was in her starving artist phase.
We have some chat statements. Lauren says, it's very sweet despite being a little more explicit. And Bruce says, "I've read parts of that book to people before too." Romaine says she was ahead of her time. "I'm glad she had the chance to publish and have an audience." From Sappho to Anais Nin. And Stephanie is just agreeing that.
Yeah, absolutely true. Now for something completely different. Here's an example of writing that was done for two purposes: education. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a dry throat with this reading. Education combined with arousal. And here's just a little piece of history. This was a brochure produced by the LA County Department of Public Health in 1985 in response to the burgeoning HIV epidemic, and particularly among gay men. And so they wanted to publish something that detailed how to have safer sex for gay men, but without just being a boring old brochure. I mean, they wanted a guy to actually pick it up and want to read it and want to see what was inside. And so, you know, here you have this rather studly image on the front cover of the brochure. And then inside, before they get to the educational piece, there are three little stories. And so I'm just going to give you a sampling of these. The forward pass: gay male college student gets a roommate who's a football player. Numerous references such as recover my fumble and taking the play. Then football player walks in on him masturbating. That's my synopsis. And here's a line: before I could object, he climbed onto the bed, straddled my legs, and held my rock-hard dick in his fist. And some of the words that follow: his wet shaft, my rod exploded, his thick white cum, sweaty and spent. And for some reason, they decided to go with a real tongue-in-cheek ending to each of these. So the ending to this story is, and to think football season was just beginning. Here's another one called Future Investment. Gay man cruising at a gay bar meets Doug. They go home to have sex, and Doug says he invested in plastics, pulls out a condom and puts it on. And here's the language: I reached for the lubricant and applied some to my cock and Doug's tight little ass. And some of the words that follow: pulsing prick, my thick shaft, fuck me, balls slapping. And the point of these is that they illustrate various forms of safer sex that don't involve unprotected penetration. And at the end, there's risk reduction information. So backstory to this: huge controversy of people saying, oh my God, this is what our taxpayer dollars are paying for to write this pornography and these disgusting stories. And unfortunately, Mother's Handy Sex Guide didn't reach as large an audience as perhaps it should have. One other little kind of similar thing, I'll do this one and then we'll see if there are comments. So these were done from the Tucson AIDS Project years later, actually 1992 as opposed to 85. And they're ethnically themed, with a Latinx couple, an African-American couple, and a white couple. And they each have a title that sort of tells what the little sexy story is going to be about. And so here's one from I Could Taste His Passion. I parted my legs and he moved to taste me. I love what you taste like, he whispered. Some words that follow: his tongue, my clit, his heart on, my wet mouth. No corny ending in these. Here's another one. Nothing could ever come between us. The language: I want to put the rubber on, she said. Again and again, she slid it up and down my shaft. And more language: she moaned, her breasts taking me deep, body exploding. And then there's one more, the white heterosexual couple. She moved her hand toward her wet, warm sex. Feeling her own wetness turned her on. Some of the other words: her scent, my fingers, deeper, she writhed in pleasure. And if there was any controversy about these, I didn't know of it. So these were educational brochures, but with some definite sexual themes. Any questions, comments?
Jane said that she's read that last book about the LA, and she said some of it was a little male dominance oriented for her. And Romaine is suggesting On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong.
I'm sorry, what did Romaine say?
That she's recommending the poet Ocean Vuong and the book On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, now.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So the other night in our writing group, we had 7 people and we were all writing as a coincidence about, we had sex in our scenes. And the question I had is that, how do you spell cum when you're referring to sex? One man had C-U-M.
That is a great question. Great question. And I can tell you what I've observed is that for some reason, men seem to be more attracted to C-U-M, while women seem to be more attracted to C-O-M-E. Just an observation.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have an observation too. I have to go, unfortunately. I'm going to watch the recording, but isn't it interesting how it's not just that it's even hard to comment on sexual readings, how people are kind of reticent to give our opinion on it and stuff, because I was just noticing that when you ask for comments and nobody commented, or they write, there's a discomfort in speaking about sex. It's almost like it's a private thing that we need to read. That's why it's nice that it's written, but then we don't want to share what we think about what we just read.
Well, that's a really interesting point. And I would add on to that, one thing I think people find really hard to say is, boy, that turned me on. That is hot. That thing you just read, or that thing I just read, because it is so personal. What turns us on is also individual, very personal.
I'm going to interject something, just take it off subject. I'm asking everybody to leave their microphones on mute when you're not speaking. I keep turning mics off and people turn it back on. So please, we're getting background noise and it's distracting.
Thank you.
And I think Stephanie has a question.
Okay.
Actually, more of a comment. I'm really appreciating the PowerPoint, Lynda, and it's so interesting to see the covers and the photographs kind of attached to the writing. And I was really struck by the Mother's Handy Sex Guide, because the model looks to me like a combination of Freddie Mercury and Burt Reynolds. And I thought was so interested that people were, straight folks, I presume, were so offended by the use of humor, and that how important the use of humor is to certain kinds of marginalized sex practice groups. It's important for queer folks of all kinds, and that's what gets everybody, everybody upset about this book. That's just sort of fascinated me. And these photographs that you're showing us look to me like the covers of kind of bodice ripper novels that we'd like see in the supermarket now. I mean, it's just kind of very interesting how the visual culture is kind of proceeding, I guess I want to say.
Well, and interesting, like any book, when you see the cover, that the cover is the visual part of it. I think with Mother's Handy Sex Guide, the objection was not the humor. It was the cocks and dicks and suck and fuck and stuff like that. And probably more were heterosexual. But, having been an HIV educator, as, some of the work that I've done in the past, one thing I know is you cannot create a generic brochure for everybody, because people are going to be drawn to what represents them and their lifestyle and what they find appealing. So, you just write a little brochure that says, hey, have safer sex. And, many gay men aren't going to pick it up. Many people aren't going to pick it up. It has to be much more personalized. Okay, got so many more to read, so I'm moving on. Now, lest you think that, writing by men or about gay sex is going to be real, hard, rough, and explicit. Here's this lovely novel, Call Me by Your Name by Andre Aciman. And I don't really know any more about him or this book, although I see New York Times bestseller up there. But it's basically the story of a young man coming to terms with his attraction for men in the form of a graduate student that his parents take in and who he has, daily contact with, and who kind of, seems to know and tease him. So here's the piece. And tell me I wasn't dreaming that night when I heard a noise outside the door and suddenly knew that someone was in my room. Someone was sitting at the foot of my bed, thinking, and finally started moving up toward me and was now lying, not next to me, but on top of me, while I lay on my tummy, and that I liked it so much that rather than risk doing anything to show I'd been awakened or to let him change his mind and go away, I feigned to be fast asleep, thinking, this cannot be a dream, which was when I decided to convey without budging, without moving a single muscle in my body, that I'd be willing to yield if you pushed, that I'd already yielded, was yours, all yours. Don't let me say no. There's no cocks and assholes in that piece, but clearly it's about sex. Comments, reactions?
We've got some people writing. Great gay sex, just popped out. Written with high prose styles. Garth Greenwell's What Belongs to You. And Nina said it's very blurred with issues of consent, however. Kelly.
Sorry, that was in response to what Lynda just read. Obviously, I don't know the follow-up of the scene, but it was like, interesting. I wonder when that was written,
Yeah, I don't know.
The subjectivity is so great there. Rhythm as well. That's what Stephanie says.
That's one of the more literary novels I think I've read. And I mean literary in two ways. There are a lot of literary references because if I remember correctly, the graduate students are studying literature. But also it's just the lyrical writing. I mean, that lyrical poetic style that he has is quite different from, what might be a stereotype, I guess, about men or about gay males.
Yeah, absolutely. And love the literary style. Some would say I recall the familiar scene in my life. Bruce said, it's a straight man. I've never found gay sex hotter. That's right.
I saw a hand up. Barbara.
Yeah, I missed that. I mean, I thought the writing was fabulous and I thought it was beautiful and lyrical. And I've forgotten if you said, is that a man writing or a woman's writing?
That is a man's writing about two men.
Oh yeah, lovely. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, some of the images that may come up, I may not read or I may see how our time goes, but I guess I'll read this next one. So I only discovered Joyce Maynard in the last couple of years, which is just astonishing to me because she's quite famous for something other than her writing, although ultimately her writing. When she was 18 years old, she was, I say seduced. Obviously, she was a legal adult, but very young compared to the age of a man in his 50s who happened to be the famous novelist J.D. Salinger, and who invited her to go and live with him. And for decades, she kept private the things that had happened between them, even though, he treated her really horribly in some ways and ultimately broke her heart. But she didn't write about it.
Can I interject just for a moment? Francis, would you please keep your mic on mute? We're getting some background. So I keep putting you in mute, you keep taking it off of mute. So I'm sorry, Lynda.
That's okay. So finally she wrote about it, and people who read her memoir about those years and after really fell into two, very opposite camps. Those who thought that she absolutely had the right to tell her story, and those who were just stunned that she would reveal such an unflattering picture of this American icon. There's only one real sex scene in the book, and here it is. The book is At Home in the World. Jerry comes into the room. He undresses and puts on his nightshirt. He climbs into his side of the bed. I get into mine. I slide closer to him so my head is pressed against his chest and wrap my legs around his. My hands move over his body. In the dark, I trace the furrows in his cheeks, the line of his sternum, hip bones, thigh bones, knees. I have them memorized. His hands reach for my shoulders. He strokes my hair. He takes hold of my head then with surprising firmness and guides me under the covers. Under the sheets with their smell of laundry detergent, I close my eyes. Tears are streaming down my cheeks. Still, I don't stop. So long as I keep doing this, I know he will love me. Only sex scene in the book, and I think you can kind of figure out what's happening there. Very circumspect way of writing about it. I mean, there's nothing really explicit there. Okay, we're going to get a little explicit here. We'll do this one a bit later if we have time. One of my favorite poets, a local poet, she's actually teaching a workshop in Culturama and also doing a keynote reading, Alexis Roan Fancher. These are just some of her books. And I'm going to read Tonight at Last Call. Jay calls me his brown liquor girl. His voice, dark urgency, like when we were attached. I let him grip my hips, slow dance me back to that lust, to the parking lot, his car, my tube top, a trophy in one hand, a bottle of Southern Comfort in his other. He pours that sweet Joplin down my throat, guides my hand between his leg, drives to the Malibu motel with ocean views, vibrating bed, and once more, our delicious thrashing, complimentary KY where the Gideon should be, the insomniac waves rocking us long before my marriage and now after. When I ask him which part of me he loves best, Jay answers, what's missing? Tonguing the place where my nipple had been, he doesn't mind the mastectomy scar, the one my husband can't bear to touch. She always packs a punch at the end, man.
Yeah, wow. We have a lot of people saying wow.
Saying what?
Saying wow, basically. Wow, that content. That last bit, very powerful, Cindy Phil's.
Let's see, I might read one more by her. I don't want to steal her thunder because she's going to read. That one actually wasn't as explicit as some are, but here's one I love called Heavyweight Clear Vinyl Shower Curtain. I disturb your shower, fresh towels my excuse to watch you stand beneath the spray. Water pouring off your hair, trickling down your shoulders, beating your studly chest. Fresh towels, the excuse for my eyes to linger at your soaked up cock, stiff in your hand. I drop the towels, pull off my dress, Press myself into the vinyl, cool to the touch. An inspired purchase, I think. You reach for my breasts, slather your face between the fogged, wet vinyl and me, mouth my nipples, grip your cock harder, faster. I reach between my legs for my clit, finger myself to match your pace, your hand a blur. When your blue eyes close, I pull my fingers from inside me, push aside the curtain, slide them into your mouth, watch you lick your lips, grin. Sometimes we see right through each other. Tomorrow, I'll give the shower curtain a 5-star Amazon review as the seller, a mom and pop in Idaho, requested if I'm satisfied.
Got a lot of LOLs.
That's a very joyous poem. And she still packs a punch because you're not expecting that Idaho mom and pop in there.
Great sex, great humor. I think it's harder to find sex writing that's fun, Lauren says.
Agree.
Oh, and Edna wants to repeat the writer's name. I'll type it in the chat if you like.
It's right there on the screen, Alexis Roan Fancher. Those are only some of her books. She's also poetry editor at Cultural Daily, which is where I had my Storming the Capitol piece published. Let's see, what else do I have here? This is a good one, but I think I'm gonna wait. We might read it later. I'm not gonna read from this, even though it has one of my all-time favorite sex scenes in the world, but it's 18 pages long. So John didn't give me enough time for that one. Don't confuse this novel with the rather bad movie that was made about it in the 80s. It is a gorgeous novel. And boy, does Scott Spencer show how you can grab a reader right on that first page. But I am going to read what might be my other favorite sex scene ever. In a lovely novel called Baba Yaga, a novel of witches in Paris by Toby Barlow. And so this is a man writing a sex scene. They kissed for a long time. She never spoke. Eventually, they tumbled across the bed until she was lying beneath him. He pulled her close and took her breast in his mouth, and she pressed her hips against him, opening her legs. He held her down on the bed and pushed himself inside her. As they moved together, he never stopped looking into her eyes. She tried to avoid his gaze, but he held her steady and would not look away. Finally, her eyes spoke to him. Her eyes said, "Words are too weak, too small. They are always too small. Even the purest and most simple phrases fail." Her eyes said, "Look at who you are. You were asleep when I met you, but now you're awake, so stay awake. I did not need you and did not want you, and yet here you are, awake in my body and in my heart." Then her eyes said, "This is the last time." Her eyes said, "I am leaving you. Don't follow me. There is nothing but pain down my path. So kiss me goodbye, please. Kiss me." And her eyes were crying. He answered by turning so that he lay on top of her, pressing his lips hard on hers, and then holding her face tight in his hands. "Stay here," he said, without using words. "Stay with me," he said, pushing himself harder inside of her. "Yes, I am awake now," he said. "I am awake and I am yours. You have taken me on a journey I can never understand, but now you own me wholly. I was nothing, and now I am a man, and now I am yours." Oh, I get chills when I read that.
So some people are asking about the name of the novel you just read.
Baba Yaga, I believe, is a Russian word for witch. But the story takes place in Paris in, I believe, the 1950s. It wasn't written in the 1950s, but that's the the era that's written about. Unfortunately, my author, Toby Barlow, did disappoint in a few other scenes where he was doing things like grabbing at her, scraping him, blood seeped out, chest smacked, thrashing and thrusting. To me, those are so far off the delicacy of this one scene that I so love. And I just love all the metaphorical way that he put it together. But that's me.
Allison asked, what was the Scott Spencer novel?
Endless Love. Also the movie with Brooke Shields, which I don't recommend. Anything else?
Let's see, let me scroll up, see if I missed something. The conflict in it makes it more passionate. Somebody said, oof, the drama.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's big time drama. It's a lovely novel, though. And it has some great humor in it as well. Like a cop turned into a cockroach, for example. Let's see. Okay. Well, let me just move on a little bit here. Oh, I'm not sure what book that poem by Sonia Sanchez is in. I just grabbed this one because it looked like a likely offering, but I'm really not sure. Cool cover, though.
Jane makes an interesting point. She says, I'm not against portraying violence, but not when the violence itself is the turn on.
Well, that is an interesting point. And I think for me, I would have to qualify that by the idea of consent. Because some people consent to some kinds of violence. And, you know, it may not be what turns you on, but it may turn someone else on. And then, you know, of course, another side of it is that some people are turned on by non-consensual violence. And that's where I really have a problem with it. Okay, are we just about ready to do a writing exercise? I'm going to show you, okay, what I have here. And you can do it any way you want. I mean, this was just to give a little structure, but it's by no means, you know, the end all be all. Picking a genre, unless you just want to free flow it, writing for, we'll say 15 minutes. As you go along, you may think about things like theme, character, language, emotion. Is it what you thought you'd write? Did it surprise you? And then we'll see about sharing. And I know sharing can be, you know, pretty intimidating, especially with this subject. So we'll do the writing, and then before we share, I'm going to read something to you that might make you feel a little better about what you have to offer. So let's see. Right now it's 11:52, so we'll go till almost 10 after, I guess. And if that's not enough time, we can extend it a bit. Because like I said, John was so generous with his time.
Andrew Turner asks what we're writing about. Is there a prompt?
No, it's just anything that you want to write about sex or with a sexual theme, etc.
Would you like to leave it on share screen, or would you like me to take it off?
I guess leave it on just in case people want to see, you know, what could I be thinking about? Oops. Maybe about 8 more minutes. About 3 more minutes. John, this is really weird, but can you still see me?
Yeah, I can see you. I can't see the shared screen though.
I minimized it because somehow I lost any picture of the Zoom or the people or you, and I don't know what happened.
Okay, I just stopped the sharing. Can you see now?
No.
Okay. This happens on one of my computers to me all the time. Zoom kind of degrades and I can't use it. But we can still see you and we can still hear you.
Okay.
Lynda, this is Stephanie. If you try if you can see your Zoom icon, the blue with the little camera, if you click on that, it might come back.
What came up is just this like blank box that doesn't have anybody's picture in it.
That's exactly what happens on my other computer. But
I've never had this before.
Hey, we can still see you, so.
Okay. It would be nice though if I could see people when they're reading.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 more minute unless someone says they really need a little more. Darn it, I really want to see people. Okay, let's see. Okay.
John, would it help if Lynda left and came back?
Yeah, that would probably work.
Let me do that for just a minute. Oh my gosh, it's not letting me leave.
Ooh.
Okay.
I'm trapped in Zoom hell where I can't leave, but I can't see anyone.
See, I'm gonna.
Let me try again. Nope, nada.
John, can you eject her?
If I eject her, she can't come back in.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Okay. Nope.
Can you turn your computer all the way off and then reboot it?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm just afraid about how much time that might take.
It shouldn't take too long, maybe a minute.
Yeah.
And are you on a Mac or a PC?
I'm on a PC.
Do Control Alt Delete, and you should get a little thing and click on Task Manager.
Okay, it says preparing security options. Oh, there's Task Manager. Okay.
Yeah, open Task Manager.
Oh my gosh. I think
and
you're
then
coming.
Yeah, and then force quit Zoom, make Zoom quit working, and then you can come back.
Wait, where is that? What do you mean force quit Zoom?
So Task Manager, you should see all the applications that are running.
Yeah.
And Zoom should be one of them. And if you click on it or do like a right click, you should see something like quit, force stop, something like that.
Okay.
I'm on a Mac, and so I may not remember all the terminology, but Task Manager should be able to make you do that. Sorry, tech support is what I do for a living. So, yay!
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Yay!
Okay, did you make it back?
I'm here.
Can you see us?
And you see me, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you can see us?
And I can see you. Yay. Hi, Bruce. Okay, so before asking you to read, which I know can be pretty intimidating with this subject, I wanted to read something to you that might make you feel just a little more confident. A friend sent this to me. Oh, darn, where is it? And at first I thought it was some kind of a joke, but I did a quick little Google, and turns out it seems to be real that this writer, Giles Coren, writes on Twitter, even my own 2005 novel, Winkler, was no sooner in print than winning the Bad Sex Award. 3 years of effort, some perfectly decent words in roughly the right order, and all I got was a load of raspberries blown by a room full of plummy virgins who'd only come for the free wine and strippers. And here's a little excerpt from his Bad Sex book. And he came hard in her mouth, and his dick jumped around and rattled on her teeth, and he blacked out. And she took his dick out of her mouth and lifted herself from his face and whipped the pillow away. And he gasped and glugged at the air. And he came again so hard that his dick wrenched out of her hand, and a shot of it hit him straight in the eye and stung like nothing he'd ever had in there before. And he yelled with the pain, but the yell could have been anything. And as she grabbed his dick, which was leaping around like a shower dropped in an empty bath, she scratched his back deeply with the nails of her hands, and he shot 3 more times in thick stripes on her chest. Pretty fun stuff, huh?
Lynda, I saw that on Facebook and I died. It's hilarious.
I didn't see it. So my friend sent it to me. And like I said, is this real? Apparently so. Anyway, you got to be better than that. So who'd like to share? Our first brave reader.
I'll do it.
Who said that?
That was Barbara.
Barbara.
Cool. Thank you.
The second time is happening on Tuesday in the Wigwam Motel. Bobby has been sad all day. She knows that it's their last time together, maybe for 2 months, maybe forever if he gets sent to Vietnam. Aware of another man's baby in her body, she keeps the blanket over her small tummy. Roger hugs her and his erection rises right away. She is a bit scared of his hard penis pushing into her stomach. They both have come to bed naked, and the acres of skin on skin is like entering an exotic foreign country. He kisses her tits until they hurt. After all, she is 2 months pregnant. She tentatively touches his penis and explains the softness of the skin and the pulsing in her hand. Where does his power hide by day? At the moment of penetration, she hears a gasp of pleasure, his or hers. Then there is more sliding in and out, and she clings to his hips and says, "Stay with me, never leave me. His tongue pushes deeper into her mouth, and she has a crazy image of his tongue meaning his penis in the middle of her body. The pace picks up and she's determined to get the first orgasm this time. She will not let him run away with the swelling, increasing motion. I want the first one, she says in his tongue wet ear, you're second. She concentrates her senses on her most sensitive and aching crotch and turns her mind to mush so that she's all body, all nipples, all clitoris, all skin, all tongue, and all sweetness spreading into a spray of orange lights popping through her, and it's the sweet, sweet sex, the second time.
Wow. Good job.
Thank you. It's part of my my novel that I'm writing, so I was happy with the opportunity. You brought out a lot.
I'm so glad. I made a couple of notes. The Other Man's Baby, The Acres of Skin on Skin, Where Does That Power Hide During the Day? Loved that one. Wanting That First Orgasm. Really nice. Anybody else have a comment? We had a lot of this.
I love the Wigwam Hotel. That's such a great setting.
Absolutely, yeah.
1964 is the year.
Wow. Nice.
Thank you.
Looks like Andrew has his hand up.
Oh, hey, Andrew. Unmute.
Yes, for sharing. I don't have any comment for Barbara.
Oh, you're ready to share.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
I just don't know when I'm supposed to do that.
Just start reading.
Okay. I don't know if you were giving more time to comments or anything, so.
Oh, I didn't see any more coming, so.
Oh, okay. Dorian watched the rain pour, collecting in lakes and rivers along the streets below. Los Angeles rarely got rain like this. Charlie had fallen asleep next to him on the couch, lulled by the rain. Dorian, however, couldn't fall asleep. Sometimes sex worked like a live wire, charging and invigorating. So he watched the rain, his body still glowing and soft, relaxed. His hands still gently roving over Charlie's chest and arm, his sleeping breath slow and shallow. He looked at peace now, but not that long ago they had both been full of fire, heat melting clothes and shedding ego until they both couldn't stand the distance between them. Dorian had pulled Charlie in so close, their mouths crashing together ungraceful, teenager-like, both trying to merge their flesh in impossible ways. Dorian smiled and rubbed the tender spot on his head where he'd hit his head on the coffee table. How Charlie hadn't even managed that position at all was a mystery. Charlie stirred under Dorian's fingers, a lightening of the sleep, and so Dorian looked again into the sleeping face. How a man could look so different asleep than he was awake. He could see the boy Charlie had been once, small, full of wonder and fear, whereas the man hid that all away under layers of steel armor crafted for other men. And Dorian loved nothing more than watching that armor crumble, stripped and peeled to see what lay underneath. It's how you fall in love, his best friend had said once, when you see them as they are, more naked, more than bare.
Yay. Some things I noted. Sex making you like a live wire. How they were full of fire, like that little rhyme there. Did you say shedding ego?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I really like that. And the difference of sleep and awake reminded me of what Barbara wrote about where does that power hide? during the day. Other comments?
Getting some chat comments. Nina says, stunning, very sensual. And Stephanie said, so many great phrases here, full of fire, crashed together. The names are wonderful, crafted for other men. Yeah.
I loved that last part where you talked about falling in love. That's how you fall in love, when you see them as they are naked. Yeah, I really like the last few lines.
Chills. Okay, anyone else want to read?
iPhone Viv has her hand up.
Okay, unmute.
Unmute. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so this is handwritten. I don't know if everybody's typing or what, but I've handwritten it and I've got notes to the margin. So I hope it comes across smoother than I think it's going to be. Might be a little choppy, but here we go. Finally, we come together after 6 months of long distance love. My plane arrives in Chicago at 2, and by 3 p.m. we're in bed. We're virgins to each other. Oh, I got chills, and we can't wait to explore. We kiss and caress, and my hands are drawn and stimulated by your hairiness, by your hard chest, your square chiseled shoulders, your freckles. I feel your hands between my legs, and I spread myself open. Your kisses travel from my sensitive neck to my breasts, my belly, and ultimately my wet vagina. Wet vagina.
The bear's repeating.
Yeah. Frog in my throat. I moan involuntarily, which urges you on. I can feel the freedom you now feel, as if my moan gave you power. I am conscious of my shyness while you are eating my most sacred space. You take me on your tongue and you suck my clit like a sweet jujube. Okay, and my body arches. I moan loudly. Now it's not long. No, wait, I moan loudly. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I moan loudly now. And it's not long before I reach that place of sheer time-stopping ecstasy. I want more. And that's it.
I want more.
I want more.
Well, let me see what others think before I say anything.
Okay. Appreciated. Critical too. Yes, more.
I liked how you were virgins to each other and how you spread yourself. Well, just all the vulnerability there and the desire. It was beautiful. And it just grew. The beauty grew and the closeness grew as you continued to share that with us.
Thank you.
I'm just kind of turned on.
I was turned on. I'm still shaking. I'm still shaking.
I think
trembling.
My favorite part was to spread myself open, because that gives the idea of spread is in food, like a food spread, which is just fantastic.
There were some areas in there that was about food and about opening and coming and yeah.
I mean, your jujube, come on. I love that.
Yeah. Sweet jujube.
How often do you get to say jujube?
Do they even make them anymore?
I hope.
I've not seen any for a long time, but I hope so too. I know I got one.
That was lovely. iPhone Viv. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say that was my husband and I 28 years ago. So, of course, this has changed around a little bit, but it was lovely.
That is so sweet.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, someone else want to share? Romaine?
I have what I just wrote, and then I have something else. But to be honest, to be fair, I'll just share what I just wrote. It was a long scream ago since I have been touched, breasts, waist, hips, thighs, lips pressed anywhere but on word and memory. Sometimes I feel eyes talking to my breast and remember how delighted my last lover was when he looked at me naked for the first time, as though my body was his gift, until we dwindled into something of a shriveled penis. Even when he came, hot sweat, his pants were always at the ready to exit, shaving away that first delight. We wilted into the wet spot on the bed, dried and longing to be clean. I throw out the sheets, buy new and untouched. I fold neatly into a cupboard, admire the smoothed crispness on the empty bed, admiring the uniform tucks of the corners, just the way Mom told me a good girl makes a bed.
Wow. That's beautiful. What did others think?
In the first line, did you say it's been a long scream?
Yes.
That's
incredible.
I wrote that down. I wrote that down. That was great.
That's an incredible. I get on board with this. I'm like, okay, let's go. This is going to be amazing. I could.
Barbara, did you have a comment? No? Any other comments?
Girls, that was just an incredible.
I loved it so much.
Oh,
can you read the first line again?
Yes. It was a long scream ago since I have been touched.
Wow.
Okay.
That's incredible. That's incredibly powerful.
Thank you.
I love the whole sheets part at the end and that last line.
Thank you.
Good girl makes the bed.
I'm glad I shared it then.
Oh, for sure. Were you going to share something else too?
I have an older one, but I don't know if somebody else wants to share. So
I saw Stephanie raise her hand.
Stephanie?
Sure, I'm happy to share a little bit of what I wrote. As usual, I get a prompt and start writing the opposite. I start writing a story about a town where no one has sex at all. And there's a reporter trying to find out what's happening. And so here's where I got to right before the time was called. Janine went home to her apartment above the bakery in Cutting. She liked the smell of the warm baked goods rising through the floor very early in the morning. The bread and croissants and cinnamon rolls rising in the darkness of winter. Pressed together side by side in the pans, they rose at different speeds, but still they achieved fruition. Their tops crispy, darkening brown, the butter flowing through the cells of the cakey and not so cakey mixtures. Later, when she came downstairs, that feeling stayed, that feeling of warmth, of completion, of pleasure. The sex is here, she thought to herself. It's here. She looked at the baker, and that's as far as I got.
That's pretty sexy, Stephanie.
That was the sexiest bread I've ever heard.
Other reactions?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pride in there and some sublimation. I love that. Because you're eroticizing the landscape.
She's also eroticizing the rising bread and and the flow of the butter. The baked goods are the erotic part of this, which is just like so fun. Thank you, Stephanie.
And thank you, Bruce. That's great. The baked goods are having all the sex that the people aren't. That's it exactly. I'm going to write that down.
And Stephanie, it makes sense that you would go the opposite way, because that's what you do to us in workshops. And then we turn this way and that way. Love it. I loved it.
Anyone else want to share? Anne?
She tried to think about herself, what she wanted. She yearned for long kisses, soft lips, moist, slippery tongues that touched tentatively and then demandingly. Her nipples ached to be bitten and pulled until they swelled like cherries. She wanted her women's gel to spread over her clit. She wanted to slide her hand between his legs over the stiffness and the fullness, over the curly hairs. But those things didn't happen. He ran his hand carelessly over her nipples, thrust his forefinger with a snag nail between her legs and up the dry pathway that then thrust himself inside her. It wasn't painful, just an arid land devoid of moist welcome.
Wow. You know, the jazz hands are for the writing, not for the sex in that scene.
Yeah, yeah. This is for a specific part of my new novel. And of course, you know that this guy is not, I mean, this is not for the forever, not the forever relationship.
Right. Who has comments?
I think the piece that hit me the hardest was the snag nail. Oh my God.
Ouch.
And then the dryness, the arid. Oh, and I like that you said it wasn't painful, but it leaves it so emotionally painful.
Yeah, all those dry images compared to what she wanted, the woman's gel, her breasts ached to be bitten, you know, and he just bypassed them.
I love it that it starts with this feeling of uncertainty. I think that's just such a great place to start. That, what do I want? And then kind of how the scene builds from there. That's so great because it really lets the reader in, I think.
I love that too. Anne, could you say the first line again about thinking about for herself? I love that.
She tried to think about herself, what she wanted. She tried to think about herself, what she wanted. Yearned for long kisses, soft lips, moist, slippery tongues that touched tentatively and then demandingly.
Sweet.
And it can be so difficult to think about what you yourself want in that kind of moment. I love that she's doing that, but it's very sad by the end when we realize that she's not having any of those things happen. Powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like the longing in that first bit, and it's just never satisfied. It just goes through. There's the longing still through each thing.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. So we have about 10 minutes left, and we may hear more, but I don't want to run out of time before just telling you guys that I appreciate how open you've been with sharing what you've written. And I want to do the same with you because I haven't shared anything of my own yet. So I'm going to read a piece that is actually from my memoir called Our Song. And the love affair that I mentioned had music as a really big part of it, hence the title. And music appears in this scene as well. We knew it would probably be September before we saw each other again. That was more than 3 months away. Impossible. What was possible was what we had here and now, in his room, in his bed, the turntable stacked with songs that called up our feelings for each other. Daydreaming and I'm thinking of you, sang Aretha, and he rolled me up on top of him. I let my hair fall over his face and I heard him inhale. Did anything smell better than Breck shampoo? He pushed my hair to one side and I saw his eyes memorizing my face. I pushed up on one elbow so that he could get a better look, and that gave him access to the little string tie that made my peasant top modest. He smiled as he undid it and revealed the not so modest woman inside. The tops of my breasts pressed against his chest, creating a fullness they didn't really have. I did not mind that. I never met a girl like you in my life, Malo sang, and he raised my arms and lifted the blouse off over my head. It fell to the floor as the tips of his fingers traced the length of my hands, forearms and shoulders, under my arms and down my sides, and I giggled because it tickled. He smiled and slid his arms around my back, pressing his palms against my wings, holding me reverently as if I might fly away. I wasn't flying anywhere except in mind and body to that place he could take me, all smooth skin and strong bone and size. Open your eyes, let it begin with me, Santana crooned, and he slid his hands down the inside back of my jeans, under my panties, to hold the curves of my ass. Brand new day, fresh new way to live, and I felt his sex against my pubic bone. I slowly rocked against it, watching his eyes change. He rolled me to his side and unbuttoned my jeans. I've got to know every time that you come where it is that you're coming from, Isaac moaned. And we were rocking and rolling together, blood pulsing endorphins to every cell, minds blown. When our bodies quieted, the familiar words came whispering out over the beat of our still beating, pounding hearts. I love you. But this time there was no doubt that the words came from him. He said it, he said it, he said it. Oh, TJ, I love you too, I whispered back.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
This is a memoir. Do you still know him?
Do I?
You still know him? Are you in contact with him?
Oh, that's a long story. We actually kind of reunited 40 years after our relationship. And I'm not going to tell the outcome of that, except to say he was not happy about my writing this memoir. So the other answers are in the book. Now, one thing you might notice, this isn't a real explicit scene. And when I've written about sex between him and me, it's been very purposeful that we were young and this love affair was sweet. It was more about sweetness than hotness, even though, we were incredibly hot for each other, but it was very sweet. And so that's the kind of language that I try to find for writing about him. Any comments?
I put this in the chat, but I'll just say, I really loved how you used the details of the clothes, because it was very erotic, but at the same time situated us very clearly in the history, because it's like, oh yeah, the peasant blouse and the string tie, those of us who were there are like, oh yeah, that blouse. I know that blouse. So that really worked beautifully. I got a lot done. Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that, Lynda. Very nice.
Lynda, I like the songs that you put into the description. And I was wondering, are you going to add a playlist for your, when you come out with the book?
Great question. And I have a playlist in the book, and I forget there's some 30 odd songs in there.
Oh yeah, can't wait.
And they're great. They're really great. Thank you, everybody. What's our time? I know we still have a few minutes, couple minutes. So Romaine, you could read that other piece if you want to, unless we have someone who has a burning desire to read.
Okay. I didn't see any hands go up.
I didn't either, so you're good.
It's a real short piece too.
Okay.
It's called Nuzzle. He says we look like two brown bears wrestling. She knows he means we look like two fat beasts of pudge in midlife, humped over each other, heat slumped, lumbering towards coupled contentment. She knows he wants to be brown snake, slim, shedding skin, young again, too swift to hold, lethally cold, slinking toward tomorrow. But today we feel like two brown bears wrestling with the fierce beauty of time.
Wow. Reactions?
Romaine, is this part of a novel or a poetry collection, or?
It's just poems that I write and tuck away. That one, yeah, just poems that I write and tuck away.
Okay, you're not interested in putting it together in a collection? I mean, those are two lovely pieces.
Oh, wow. Well, I could. I have quite a few of those. I just never thought about doing that.
That could be your sex collection.
You need to get it out there.
Your sex collection.
Ooh.
See?
Yeah. Well, I'd have to think long and hard about that.
You know, I want to answer a question from Gary, who came late. The recording is going to be at the Culturama community page, Blogspot page.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So
I just wanted to say for a second, I love so much, as a person who's not currently writing, I love so much how much you all were able to share with people. It reminded me of a party that we once gave where somebody brought in a karaoke machine when that was new, and then promptly sang like a professional and intimidated everybody else into not sharing, and it ended our party. And so you are all such great writers. It could have been so intimidating to actually have to read after the last wonderful writer. I can't believe how brave you all were to be able to do that. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm just putting up my my last little image here in my PowerPoint, and then my website. So I'm going to post my PowerPoint on my website, and it's also, of course, part of the recording that John is going to post in the Culturama community page. And, you know, feel free to contact me through my website if you have any questions or you know, feedback that comes up for you later. How to make this workshop better. I'm always trying to think about that. And I second what Bruce said, how wonderful it was that you were so willing to share. I'm sorry if we didn't get to everybody. I know, you know, people get shy sometimes about reading. Sometimes I do myself. So anyway, just wanted to put that up there. And now I want to get rid of it, and I can't. Uh-oh. Am I going to make the same mistake I made before? Okay. There you are.
Well, thank you so much, Lynda. Did you have anything else to?
Me or anybody else?
No, you, Lynda.
Oh, you know, the last thing that I wanted to mention, and it was on the PowerPoint at the end, but I just kind of whizzed over that, is I want to reiterate how much I regret that I stopped writing for as long as I did. I've been thrilled that since I've come back to it, I've had some publications, I've had, people show interest in my work, but I can't help, and that's great, but I can't help but think, had I been writing this whole time, I would be so much better. I would have been honing that craft over those decades that I didn't. And I really regret that. So if you love writing, if you have hopes for your writing, don't stop. Keep it going. Even when life gets complicated, even when you got to earn a living and it seems like there isn't the time and there isn't the energy, because that's what happened to me. And I'm really lucky now that I'm having some good things happen with my writing. So I want that for other people too. And thank you for showing up today and participating. Loved seeing all of you.
Well, thank you so much. I hope everybody keeps writing, like you say. And so next up we have Paul Tayar. So it'll be on the same channel. You can just stick around here. All right.
I have a comment.